What was once believed to be a decades-long Hollywood rivalry suddenly became a federal testimony when Monique took the stand on day 6 of the Diddy trial. They rushed in whispers, much like other reporters, wondering what shocking revelation would come next. Considering the connections she made with Bishop T.D. Jakes, Diddy, Tyler, Perry, and Oprah Winfrey, she was in a state of disbelief when she left the courtroom. Not only did she bring words, but she also brought time frames, receipts, recordings, and the kind of reality that made people pay attention. Monique was allowed to speak under oath for the first time in history. On day 6, reporters lined the hallway, waiting to see what headline would be unveiled, and the gallery was already packed before the doors even opened. They were surprised to learn that everything we believed to be true about this trial was altered by what she had been warning us about for years. When Oscar-winning actress, comedian, and outspoken Hollywood critic Monique walked in quietly but confidently from the side door, the atmosphere became more intense. Her name was not on any expected witness list, but her defense team looked at each other as prosecutors shuffled files with fresh urgency. When she took the stand, the atmosphere in the room altered. Dottie, dressed in a charcoal suit, leaned close to his lawyer and muttered something, seeming a little perplexed. Her eyes tightened, and his jaw technique sat up straight. But Sketch, artists were able to capture the moment when his usual stoicism faltered, causing a slight twitch in his voice. I was asked here to speak the truth, and that's what I intend to do for years. Her voice was firm from the first word. She had shared stories about being blackballed by Tyler, Perry, Oprah, and warned the nation about what went on behind the velvet curtains of Hollywood. She was angry that she was going overboard, but those same warnings were being taken very seriously, now that she was sitting in a federal courtroom on oath. The trial was no longer solely about the specific dates of meetings, phone conversations, broken promises, and offers made in back rooms under the guise of opportunity, after the judge permitted her to read from a timeline she had made that described her personal interactions with prosecutors. Some of the prosecutors had already cited notes from Cassie Ventura's prior testimony. Monique's second comment, which was aimed at Tyler Perry instead of Diddy, hit like a rocket and was no longer about Diddy. She related how she and Perry had a private discussion in 2018, during which he admitted that her dismissal from Hollywood had been unjust. Monique, he informed me he was wrong. He claimed that he would make a public apology, but he never did. Monique glanced directly at the jury when asked who he was referring to, saying, "Puff, that's who he was worried about." According to her, Perry instead warned her that if he did, it would backfire on those who weren't ready to be revealed. The technique went further, claiming that Perry told her he couldn't risk it. Even the prosecution team exchanged looks as courtroom spectators gasped, stating, "This wasn't just drama, this was possible evidence of industry-wide collusion." The judge approved the transcript because it contained too many people bound by too many non-disclosure agreements. She then presented a written transcript of a call recording in which Perry told her, "There are things going on that I can't be connected to publicly. We've all seen things at Puff's parties that we're not supposed to talk about." The accusation, that the audio should be admitted into evidence but was blocked for the time being. Pending authentication was not the only thing that made this moment so powerful. It was also the chilling realization that several Hollywood elites may have known what was happening at Diddy's events and remained silent to protect their own brands. Side quickly raised an objection, claiming that Monique's testimony was conjectural. The prosecution did, however, effectively contend that it provided the essential background information about Diddy's years of protection through quiet and reputation management, which may have made abuse possible. Monique then took a, "I've been to one of Diddy's parties, and I left because I saw something I wasn't meant to," which was the moment that truly made people take notice. She testified that in 2006, after calibrating her microphone and delivering the words that would create headlines by the end of the hour, she accepted an invitation to a private party in Los Angeles. A valet seized her phone and escorted her into a massive estate in the Hollywood Hills. R&B music was playing softly, candles were lit, and a cast of men and women were escorted into back rooms in succession. She learned that it was a networking gold trick from a friend who is also an actor. "It's all about experience here, you're safe if you sign the NDA. One of Did's aides told me as I was leaving, I remember. Rumor had it that her phone had been ringing for a while, but she never signed and never came back. The man was dressed only in a bathrobe, while the woman was wearing heels. She was always concerned that her leaving had made her a liability. and she never forgot that night. She was asked by the prosecution if she believed that this incident was common at Diddy's parties. She was told by a producer that she was becoming challenging, and she stopped getting invited to film festivals, gave a nod. I think it was designed as a system, and I was disconnected when I didn't follow it. When the prosecution asked Monique if she believed Tyler Perry had purposefully defended Diddy's reputation, she said no. Her testimony supported Cassie Ventura's and others' accounts of experiences with hired escorts, candlelit rooms, and cameras set up in luxurious hotels that were marketed as networking retreats. The unique aspect of Monique's story was her viewpoint as a well-respected actress, rather than a subordinate who came in on her own terms and left with her career gradually falling apart. She paused before responding. Yes, and I believe this was a deliberate tactic used as part of a larger effort to keep things quiet. She brought up the now famous event that was widely shared on social media, where Tyler Perry scribbled a $1 million check in front of everyone while inside Bishop T.D. Jakes' megachurch. Regarding the congregation, Monique stated, "People saw it as a blessing, but she also noted, I saw a transaction. The religion acts as a shield, and people like Diddy use it to establish ties that make them seem untouchable. That donation wasn't just charity, it was damage control." The courtroom was filled with murmurs, and even the judge looked up to see the jurors hurriedly scrawling. Monique testified that several posts about Diddy and his parties gradually disappeared from gossip blogs around the same time as Perry's church gift, and that's when I realized that people were getting paid. Convinced that the $1 million was for peace and quiet, not just for Jakes. Pictures of Perry and Diddy together at a BET event a few weeks after that donation, arms around each other, grinning widely as if nothing was amiss, were shown by the prosecution. Charges, it supported Monique's claim that the entertainment business did more than protect Diddy. It helped to elevate him. When the courtroom fell silent during her testimony, Monique reached into her backpack and pulled out a printed transcript saying, "This is the call," she added, where Tyler Perry admitted he was wrong. She then paused and turned to the judge saying, "You see, I'm not afraid of being blackballed anymore. I've been through it, and let me tell you something. Silence is the best defense. It was the most costly price any of us pay, and we've all paid it at this point." Gasps. Murmuring. After years of claiming that Tyler Perry had privately apologized for the way she had been treated after the Precious fallout, Monique was now making the claim in oath and providing a transcript to back it up. He knew what I had told him, and I had recorded the conversation. "I know I messed up, you were never difficult, you just didn't want to work for free. I should have said that," Perry is quoted as saying in the transcript as she handed the documents to the bailiff, who then handed them to the judge. After looking over the top lines, the judge nodded to allow the prosecution to continue. "That in public. But I can't go public," he allegedly says to Monique after turning around. He informed me that Monique was afraid of what would happen if Diddy's secrets were made public. Prosecutors used Puff's identities, which were already too mixed up, to show how corrupt Hollywood elites, even those with perfect reputations, were. She added that many people, including those who signed checks and finance movies, would be joining Puff if he went down. This section of her testimony supported the inferences made about Diddy's web by Christian Keys and former bodyguard Gene Deal. Was systemic, not merely personal authority. His tone softened. He could have cleared my name, but he decided against it because he was protecting something bigger than me, something worse than anyone cares to admit. The prosecution and Diddy's attorneys looked visibly shaken after a friendly phone call that had just become federal evidence was followed by a name that hadn't been mentioned in the trial yet but sent shockwaves through the room. The judge's decision to declare the transcript admissible was a major victory for the prosecution. The Winfrey approach wasn't informal. In 2010, she made a point. Oprah pledged not to use my brother's abuse of me as a child, but she did just that, inviting my brother to appear on her show soon after I turned down the coveted press tour. Monique wasn't done, but the courtroom wasn't sure how to handle the emotional scenario. When I asked her why she had betrayed me, she said it was business, but I could tell they were attempting to keep me quiet. Then, as she testified, she linked Diddy and Oprah Perry by pointing out that they both have the same individuals cleaning up mistakes, and that they both have mutual handlers, PR crisis squads, and NDAs. because I accidentally received a series of emails on how to handle optics from one of those PR professionals. My name, Puff's name, and Tyler's name were all in the subject line. The court read the redacted form of the email she sent me, but the message was clear. Sitting under oath, Monique exposed it for what it was, a machine that was meant to suppress anyone who dared to criticize it. The jury saw that the power structure was not only shielding Diddy, it was also orchestrating the signing of non-disclosure agreements, the payment of individuals, and the development or destruction of careers based on compliance. Monique did something no one had expected when the court reassembled after a brief break. She took a deep breath and said calmly, "Now let's talk." She closed her binder, her voice unbroken, and she wasn't shaken because, for the first time, she wasn't just telling her story, she was testifying about the list. The audience froze again, and the prosecution leaned eagerly in to let her speak. It was a list that Oprah just made up. In Hollywood, there is a list of people you don't speak against that isn't written down, but everyone knows it exists. Tyler was on that list. According to the moniker, if you attacked one of these individuals, even if you had proof, you were immediately labeled difficult, crazy, or worse, dangerous to the company. She went on to say that the list was an invisible boundary rather than a written document. She posed the question, naming individuals without leveling allegations but providing background. How many people worked with Diddy, Tyler, and Oprah and then suddenly disappeared? That she ended herself on the other side of that queue in 2010 and has been fighting her way back ever since seems strange, doesn't it? She added, dropping her voice. And some of them saw things that they were never supposed to see, referring to celebrities who had one hit show, one buzz during the award season, and then vanished. Some of them chose not to participate, and others said not to. Although she didn't say it was Tyler Perry, the court allowed her to read a brief statement from a former actor who had had it redacted for protection. The statement described a retreat hosted by a powerful male filmmaker where phones were taken, contracts were signed, and strange rituals were observed. Monique's message was clear. The industry wasn't protecting art. Rather, it was protecting secrets, and the cost of speaking the truth is that they will take your career, your reputation, your peace, and leave you to explain yourself. The judge let the jury sit with the uneasiness, reminding everyone that these were accusations. When questioned explicitly if she thought Diddy was responsible for her career being ruined, Monique agreed, yes, not initially, but eventually, yes. A junior executive who had worked at Diddy's media company, Revolt TV, called her after the costly campaign fiasco when the blackballing began, and she explained, "The world why your phone never calls again." It wasn't until years later that I understood how significant it was. He told her, quote, "It's not just about Tyler and Oprah, you rubbed the wrong people." Puff dislikes the executive implied that Perry's team had approached Diddy for potential project agreements, according to the court's leaned-in technique testimony. The arrangement was straightforward. She claimed that they wanted access to Puff's platforms, and that I was the barrier. She also claimed that several meetings between Diddy and Perry had a private meeting that she later learned about through mutual contacts. They talked about my name being a problem rather than a talent, and the prosecution produced emails between a PR firm that Revolt and Tyler Perry Studios had hired to manage the narratives surrounding Nique and Cassie. When the court first witnessed a direct digital connection between the two women's reputations being carefully manipulated simultaneously, Ventura went on to say that she thought her difficult label was purposefully spread, using it like a virus, to infect a casting director. She said something that few people in Hollywood ever say under oath. I wasn't blackballed. Instead, I was whiteballed by black people who looked like me and people who were more afraid of losing their own place than they were of losing their own. It quickly spreads to everyone, and before long, your name appears in a room, and they already have an excuse to say no. Cared about doing the right thing? I didn't want to be here, Monique said in a steady but exhausted voice, but I had to be because of what they did to me, Cassie, and young women and men at the moment, until someone says it with a microphone, louder than theirs, it won't stop. Replied at first, no, I wasn't going to relive it, when contacted by the prosecution 2 months earlier. I wasn't going to reveal my family, my trauma, or my pain once more, she added. But then I saw the prince recording, Diddy yelling in court, and Cassie sobbing on the witness stand. My grandmother broke her technique and described her decision to testify as a moment of spiritual clarity when she said, "Baby, don't let them write your story without you in the room." And I knew I had to be present for her final moments on the stand. In your judgment, Miss Jackson, what was the fundamental reason of this entire system of silence? She asked. Monique said, "Everyone in this industry is afraid that they would lose their career, a deal, or their significance," in response to the prosecution's devastating question. She said softly, "You thought nobody would talk that you built an empire strong enough to silence everybody, but now you're sitting in silence, talking about Diddy." As she left the courtroom, the gallery erupted, not with loudness, but with enthusiasm. To tell the truth, because people like Puff, Tyler, and yes, Oprah have made it very expensive to do so. Diddy was reportedly extremely upset, with his hands shaking and his lawyer muttering loudly, according to reporters. "Silence, and I hope you finally hear us," she replied. When Monique met the defense's gaze and said the name that hadn't been formally mentioned once during the trial, nobody could have predicted what would happen. For almost a decade, Monique Black-Bilal was the most influential voice during the trial. All of a sudden, she was the most influential voice in the courtroom. Tyler Perry, the past 5 days have been quiet control, like someone finally pulling a loaded revolver from a locked drawer rather than a scream or a dramatic moment. See who was standing next to Mr. Perry and ask him why I was blackballed for refusing to labor for free if you want to discuss power or quiet. At first, the courtroom seemed confused because Tyler Perry's name wasn't in the indictment and he wasn't on trial. But Monique's inference was about culture, the system, and who protected whom, not about legality. He made calls to ask the producers, ask the agents, ask Lee Daniels. I have the call logs. She then showed a folder that had not yet been included to the evidence, but he never did anything to help me. The defense quickly raised an objection, but it was too late because the jury had already heard it a good deal of the time. I have witnessed people sign non-disclosure agreements in front of me, and I am aware of whose NDAs were upheld and who attended the events. When my work dried up, I was encouraged to be thankful. You're fortunate to be here. I have a tape of a phone call when Tyler said he was sorry for everything and admitted his mistakes, but he wouldn't go public because he said it would ruin everything. Then, even the prosecution was taken aback by what she stated. "I'm done protecting men. Who never protected me that single," she replied. Mary blamed not just Diddy, but the entire power structure that allowed him to operate without restraint. No exhibit the courtroom had heard that week had the same impact as this remark. Both the initial jurors in the trial and Hollywood itself were looking past the man at the defense table and evaluating everyone who helped. He remained